Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Enterprise Dish, where we're hanging out with Rick. And right before we started this, I said, "Why isn't that thing working?" And I think that's kind of just the story of my life. It's just,
That would be my today also. I had a bunch of things not go as expected as well.
yeah, it's it's always good to be back, Rick. You are clearly in a different location. Where are you at?
Well, I'm in the Veeam office in Atlanta, Georgia. We've got a number of offices around the country that have pretty high quality studios. And we were recording something today, which is hilarious that I didn't just use the studio. I didn't even think of this, Brad. I'm sorry about that. We got perfect light, great audio microphones, a Skype box, if you know what that is.
I do.
It all. We got it all. But
Yeah,
no, you got my ambient camera and visitor office.
But to be honest, I mean, it's not, other than you being, well, obviously in Atlanta, which is, I'm there all the time because that's one of Delta's major hubs. I'm always connecting through there. Other than the non-Veeam posters on the wall, I honestly probably wouldn't have known.
It's actually really boring of an office. I mean, my personal office in Columbus is like a complete pep rally of Veeam stuff, whereas this is completely sterile. It drives me crazy.
Gotcha. Now, are you able to talk about what you were recording down there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we were doing an internal training for our SEs for the upcoming Veeam capabilities that are going to be released later this year and what we're going to call Update 4. So we went through the half of it. We went through the first half of it today, and the second half of it we're going to go through tomorrow. But basically, it was kind of a live stream situation, and my whole team was involved, right? So a lot of the people that we had at VeeamON and at VMworld, and I even have one joining from NetApp Insight and in Las Vegas that will help us drive this content. So yeah, it's just internal enablement is what we were working on today.
Here's a very, very random question to keep the show always interesting. Sure. When my wife and we went on our honeymoon, we went to St. Lucia, which is down in the Caribbean down there, just way down south. But when we were coming through the Atlanta airport, probably 7:30 in the morning, there was a Pizza Hut in one of the terminals, and we ate Pizza Hut at like 7:40 in the morning right before we were flying to St. Lucia, and I have never been able to find that Pizza Hut again. I don't know if it was in a specific terminal, like a international one.
I don't think it's still there.
Is it gone?
The Pizza Hut Express in ATL does not sound familiar. And I'm literally going rogue here. I'm going on my podcast because this is going to bug me. They do have a Chipotle in C, by the way, which I frequent that for like a meal when I'm in connection, because I have a lot of my favorite restaurants at an airport, right? I'm very particular to that. So if I have this much time, I'll do this. If I don't, I'll do that. And the Pizza Hut Express, I just don't think it's there. And I got to be able to spell Pizza Hut, but it's one of those things that I can't place it in the ATL airport. And a quick Google search kind of is not showing me one there. So did it hit the spot at that time of day? How did that go?
It was random, and my wife and I mean, I think most people just kind of like pizza or whatever, but we knew we were going. I mean, you gotta remember, this is when we went on our honeymoon. It was the morning after our wedding, so there was still some legacy alcohol still in the system, if you will, and it was just kind of one of those greasy food things. You're like, yeah, that'll do. And mind you, this was nine years ago, so I've never seen it since. We ate there, and I don't know if we were the last customers, but we ate there, went to St. Lucia for a week, and we've never found it again. And the only reason I bring that up is because I know you're a Delta person, and Delta people fly a lot through Atlanta.
Yeah, I fly through often. It was very nice this last week just to fly here as my destination. Sure. And actually, I went to a museum, and I think you saw it on Twitter. It was actually
the Delta.
Really cool. Delta Museum. I'm a little bit of an aviation buff. There's three things I know. It's food, it's airplanes, and it's computers, right? And so I really enjoyed that museum there. I fly by it often. So if anybody's in Atlanta with time to spare, it's called the Delta Flight Museum or Heritage of Flight or something like that. And they've got, like, for example, they've got the very first 747-400 ever built that you can completely walk through. Neat. And it's partially dismantled. You can see all the cabling and plumbing that go into a system like that. And they have a 767 that was a really important thing for their history. And then they even have a DC-3, which is back in the prop era. So they got a lot of great things going on there at that museum.
Very cool. Very cool. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be coming through there. I mean, I go through there all the time, but I don't know about getting out of the airport. It's been a while.
You would need, outside of the airport, at least 2 hours to get through there. So
Gotcha.
30 minutes each end to get there. Well, 20 minutes to get there. You'd need a substantial layover. I just got lucky because I arrived early enough and I built my day around it. So it was a great little diversion.
Very cool. Well, let's dive in here, shall we? So the big news of the week or the past, depending on when you're listening to this, is that general availability is all the theme or rage of the server world at Microsoft. You have Windows Server 2019, SharePoint Server 2019, Skype Server 2019, and any other thing that probably ends in Server 2019 is now available. And any gut reactions to that, Rick? Any things you think about or just musings of major software reaching general availability with Microsoft saying this is ready for the enterprise?
Well,
exactly.
I might want to put a question mark on that, Brad. And you see this happen occasionally with software releases where they get pulled. And as you know, this one's a little special where it's in and it's out of availability. And what my observation when anything goes out is, if any organization, if any enterprise or any SMB is going to deploy it in production, they have to be able to do three things. Do what they want to do with it, so run their apps that they need, or I should say, and manage it and keep it available. And that's kind of where Veeam comes in, right? So at Veeam, I look at, can I back up Windows Server 2019? Can I manage it? Can I protect the apps that I'm running, et cetera? And so this has actually been quite a very interesting release in that regard. So the short story is, it happens all the time. Platform support, they change, they update, new capabilities come in. And I think we talked last time about really got to look out for 2008 R2, end of life coming up. So it's really about migrating towards that. But when I think about these new platforms that are out, and if you haven't gotten in the lab, do it. That's the number one piece of advice. And then if you have it in the lab and you like what you see, then the next thing is, go through kind of a check down. What do I use to manage things? What do I do to back up things? What kind of automation things are going to work, right? There's no guarantee that all your great PowerShell scripts are going to work the same, right? So we have to really make sure that when a new platform comes in, that it's going to fit with all those other matters. So that's kind of my practical advice with that. And, just get on it, because the expiration dates are real for the other platforms. And if you can get more familiar with the current platform now, that'll help you with the old platforms later.
Yeah, always sage advice. You can never be too early when it comes to end-of-life support.
To end of life, yeah, but you can always be too early on that bleeding edge of the newest releases, right? So you got to find a spot on the knife somewhere that you won't get hurt.
Yeah, you definitely, you can be on the bleeding edge and out of business. That is very much a reality if you can't maintain being online.
Yeah.
So, very cool. Rick, the question that came in a couple weeks ago, and it was actually specifically targeted towards you, and they want to know about budget and planning. This is the time of the year. I know as our company is starting to look at this, as we're starting to reach out to our partners and say, hey, let's look at 2019. When you start thinking about budgeting and planning for 2019, are there any tips that you recommend or things to think about? I know we all like to think that we have $1 billion accredited to our line of business, but that's not always the case. And you got to be smart with how you make your bets for the year ahead. Just any kind of things that come to mind when someone says, hey, Rick, let's start planning for 2019 in the IT sector.
Yeah, a number of things come to mind. So, believe it or not, first thing on that list is staff training. I am convinced that IT professionals of any type, and I look at my team of 8 people, they're a very varietal group all over the world, but they all have, they're good at what they do now, but that's a point in time thing. And I, as a manager in this product strategy team, I have to develop them up. So one of the first things I'm always thinking about is having them identify what they want from a training perspective. And training, with the air quotes here, that doesn't necessarily mean a week-long course of install, configure, and manage product X. It might mean that, but it doesn't always. Like one individual on my team, this person is very much pushed into very progressive things like serverless apps and containers and things like that. And maybe the right training is actually to attend something like KubeCon or something like that, those industry events that are already sitting there, right? So my first thing is I go around to my team and identify what are the areas that would either A, help you in your current role, or be critical to your development path to something new. So I want every individual to choose one of those. I can't necessarily do both, but the staff training is very important. So that's the first thing. And it could be very much cloud topics, right? Like Azure Administration 101 would be a great training course, right? Because everybody's that I know has had to figure it out as they go. And same for Amazon, same for the container space and all these other things, IoT. If you can also draw those into your business processes. Now, the second side of that budget is OpEx and CapEx, and those are kind of more IT spend type of things. And the way I do that is I first of all identify business people in my company that would agree that we need a technology service to do whatever that business group needs. Granted, my role at Veeam is a little bit different, but I learned this when I was in financial services. I had the same recipe that I applied when I was doing what I would call end user IT work, right? But what I learned was always go ahead and have the business, aka non-IT people, saying they want something you have as an offering to then say, when I go to ask for money, if I've got not just Joe IT person, but also Joe line of business person advocating for a technology solution that Joe IT person can do, then you're going to be much more likely to get that approved. And that could be as simple as a new piece of software. It could be a subscription to the cloud for something. And then kind of a different angle is what I like to do, and this is kind of progressive, but like a lot of companies, myself as well, we're going through budget matters right now. I actually give longer term forecasts. And what I mean by that is my environment that I have here at Veeam, officially it's a lab. I mean, I don't launch missiles or save lives with it, but for the team I have, yet. But for the team I have, this is our production infrastructure. And when you think about labs, and we have a colo, it's a good arrangement. It's got a cross connect to Amazon. It's awesome. But the reality is those are capital expenses. So what I'm doing, and this is a piece of advice that you could do for anybody, is I'm actually giving a forecast. And the forecast is that, okay, right now it's 2018 going into 2019, but today in October of 2018, I'm going to the CFO or going to the finance team and giving a forecast that in 2020, I am expecting to have a lab refresh of capital expenses, meaning I need to refresh my servers, that type of thing. So, and that will not just be adding a little bit of RAM. Can you throw hard drives at it? No. The kit's got to go.
Yeah.
So basically this forecast is a very wise step. You don't need to do it now, but the thought is you might get a little bit of that's going to be a problem. So then I have a year to work on an alternative arrangement, or you could get lucky and say, do it now. Because if they have the money in a certain time, but they know that this is coming for next year, it may make sense to use it earlier. So there's a piece of advice.
That's actually, I mean, that's honestly good planning, right? Because no surprises are the best kind of surprises, especially in financial management like this, where you have literally dollars on the line and you know that you're going to need some, and you don't need it now, but you're going to need it then. And that way, at least you can say you warn them at the end of the day if they come back to you next year and be like, Rick, we had no idea. I'm like, well, you could be, that's honestly really good advice. I don't think there's any way to.
Right. And the thought is maybe it's like, well, hey, I know you told me that we're looking at adding like $500,000 to spend or $300,000 next year, but is there anything that we could do to lower that for 2020 here in, let's just say, July of 2019? Then maybe I could refresh just the network or just the storage or things like that, So just give them that forecast, because there might be an opportunity that comes up where you could solve that ahead of time to then be in a better position at the end.
Yeah, no, that's well, the next question is, Rick, what is your dream? What's your dream for building out the new lab?
And that's actually an interesting question, because It's not necessarily my dream. In fact, my team met last week in Prague, Czech Republic. We had an event where we hosted our Veeam Vanguards, which are the kind of the MVP, vExpert, a la Veeam. Okay, and I don't always get my whole team together. We're on 4 continents, etc. So it was like three continents. So it was a very rare time that we were all together. So what I ended up doing is I said to the guys and the girls, I'm like, look, everybody around the room, what do you like about our lab? What's not working and what's missing? Kind of like a start, stop, keep assessment, or what's working, what went wrong, what's missing, that type of kind of three-dimensional view of the lab. And I was actually surprised. We had plenty of storage and we got plenty of backup storage, and networking's fine. It's just the memory, right? So it's like we had a good assessment, right? So what's the dream view of that in my team? It's really just a matter of having the right amount of capacity for what we want to do. And we're actually in this weird kind of transition where we're flipping a little bit more to cloud. So we all can concurrently, unanimously agreed that in 2020 we should still pursue a refresh, but we also all agree that, say, 2023, 2024, I don't know, it might be all cloudy by then.
Yeah.
So who knows what the dream lab looks like, but the gravity of on-premises data is real. Organizations have a lot of it. Data centers are not going away for at least a few generations.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch. I'm pretty well surrounded by the Microsoft bubble, and soon as you poke your head outside that little bubble, all you see are servers. Granted, there's a large quantity of people in the cloud. Don't get me wrong, but there's still a sizable chunk of people still buying metal for the lab.
Well, absolutely. You could argue that the growth area is in the cloud. But very rarely do I hear of people shutting down data centers. I do hear about consolidation.
Sure.
But, until the apps start changing, a lot of this stuff is going to be around forever or for a while.
Yep. That'll be interesting to watch, but that is something that's not happening tomorrow, but you should definitely plan for it. Or even, as Rick might say, you might forecast it.
Forecast. I like that. I just made that up, by the way, the term. I've been doing that, but I just called it a forecast.
Rick, as we round it out here, acronym soup that has been coming along. The 3 letters of this week are, and this happens a lot on my side, especially from Microsoft, AAD, Azure Active Directory. You want to just dive into that for a few seconds?
Oh, yeah. The main thing to know here is that if you think about Azure as a cloud platform, it is really at a pretty significant advantage due to the hooks available of other Microsoft technologies being a first-class citizen. So what I like to say about AAD, and I really want to give a highlight, and I'll send you this in the podcast notes, Brad. One of the Veeam Vanguards, Sander Berkouwer from the Netherlands, is a really good expert in this technology. But when you think about Microsoft technologies being first-class citizens of sorts to Azure, one of the most important things is identity management. And so if you think about Active Directory on premises and then services in Azure, there's a great opportunity to basically trust it, federate it, link it, whatever. And so that is really what we walk into of Azure AD. And there are kind of other sideways directions and spokes that pop in with things like Office 365. And so you kind of end up in a spot where on premises, all your authentication was managed by AD, and then in the cloud, same thing. It's just Azure AD. So I think Microsoft walked into a win right there from an identity management perspective, because it's a natural fit. Dare I call it the natural technology of sorts. I don't think you've ever heard it explained that way. But that's why I want to definitely give a shout out to Sander, who knows stuff very well.
No, that's always insight is what we're looking for, and that's what we're gonna get from the Rick.
Until I start dishing on things like football, which I'm not happy at.
Why don't we spin this one around? So this week's dish, Rick and I were talking about this before, and he brought up football, and I was like, Rick, it was a pretty bad week. weekend for Ohio in football. But what do you got for us?
So American football, for the listeners, is one of those things. It's football season, and Brad and I both live in the U.S. state of Ohio, so we're just now feeling fall weather, right? So now I can focus on it, and unfortunately, both actually all three significant Ohio football teams lost this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
The Browns in overtime, the Bengals on prime time, and then the Buckeyes, Ohio State, the night before. So it's just like we just did not 0 for 3. We didn't do it. But I'm going to flip that around. And why I want to dish on football is that the game is changing. And what I mean by that, it's not game changing. It's just that there's change in the game. And I think it's kind of interesting because you look at college football.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still think certain teams in the SEC are really one of the best.
Yeah.
But you're seeing coaches move. You're seeing the middle of a conference not be as strong. So there's actually some really significant changes happening in the football game. And I actually think that when we turn around and look at this in like 2 or 3 years, you'll see significant changes. I don't think, the New England Patriots will be at their level forever. I don't think Alabama will forever. It's an incredible run what both of those teams have done, really without a doubt the best at their level. But I think you're just going to see enough shift and twist where there's going to be some cascading effects that and also changes to the rules, like the whole new safety rules about kickoffs and the tackling rules and stuff. I think it's going to be an interesting adaptation to the game. This is I want to say the first year of a transition.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I always like college football for that exact reason, is that every 4 years an entire team other than the coaching staff turns over. And so it's significantly harder, at least in my opinion, in college to maintain a dynasty. I think it's fair to say what Alabama has done. I mean, they've been best of the breed for the past 4 or 5 years now. And the fact that they're still at the top of their game is it's incredible.
Yeah, it is. Especially, I think there's 128 FBS teams, and when you look at that one team in that 1% every year, or even in the top 2, even if they have a bad year, they're top 2%. And that is just absolutely incredible. And you're right, the personnel from a player standpoint, it has a very defined turn, and then there's those side effects with the coaching changes, and should some coach, even in New England as well, you see a coach retire or something like that, there's just going to be shockwaves. And I think this is one of the first years where we're going to see, this larger transition in really both types of premier football in the U.S.
Yep. It will be fun to watch, as it is always, just about every day of the week now. I was going to say Friday and Saturday, but then it's also Monday night and then sometimes Thursday night. And
Thursday now, sometimes there's Tuesday. I thought Tuesday, there was a Tuesday, I don't know. You can find football whenever you want. And then the best part is if you have a really complete cable offering like me, there's games from the weekends that you didn't see and you don't remember the score. They're playing on Wednesday, so you can just watch that too.
Makes all the wives happy.
I don't know about that.
My wife always gets annoyed because the golf season kind of tails down right as football season's tailing up, and she's like, every Sunday for the whole year you have something to watch. I'm like, well, that's kind of the idea.
Well, I have no time to watch it, so I love like Sports Center, really quick play games, or a DVR where I can control the speed. So
Absolutely.
But there's plenty to do at home, but I love to at least get the gist of the sport.
Yep. Before we shut it down, Rick, you got anything else for us?
I do not believe so. Probably next time we talk, I'll actually have some little secret nugget future stuff to share. Ooh. But
looking forward to that.
Yeah, just doing my Veeam thing here at Veeam. But basically, the main thing is we're preparing internally for this next release, and we're clearing some bloggers to share some of that stuff. So
nice.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty busy end of the year for us, but no, great to catch up again, and hopefully I get another tough question next time.
We'll have to see what comes in, and you can always, what's the best way for people to reach you?
Twitter on the randoms, if you want to track me down, it's at Rick Vanover, and then I'm pretty good about engaging there. I had a busy week last week on Twitter, but Rick Vanover on Twitter.
Fantastic. Well, Rick, we very much appreciate you stopping by. And for everybody else, this wraps it up for the Enterprise Dish. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and log in for everything else. And we'll catch you right back here next time on the Enterprise Dish. Thanks for hanging out.